Okay, so the aim of this first presentation is to introduce the IDEA Interreg project and also to share with you some highlights. But firstly, as coordinator of this project, I would like to take the opportunity to thank Centraal Supélec and also Innovatiesteunpunt for their efforts to organize this webinar. As introduced by Alexandre, I work at VITO, and VITO is an applied research center in Belgium. And more specifically, I'm part of the renewable chemicals compounds group. And there we focus on sustainable feedstock, not only to be ready for the post-petroleum world, but also to cope with a growing world population that needs food and to reduce the pressure on the environment. And there are different options for the renewable feedstocks. These can be underutilized side streams, or also bio-based products have potential, like insects and algae. And VITO is touching all these aspects, but the subject of today's presentation is the algae that do have potential as feedstock for higher valuable compounds towards different applications. And at VITO, we approach
Alexander, there is no sound. Is there a problem?
Yeah, we can't hear. Leen, are you still here? Oh, it appears that Leen is not connected.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's okay now.
Okay, so this part was on the value chain, where I was explaining the different parts, the selection of the algae strain, the growth and the pre-harvesting. That also includes the medium reuse. Then there are preservation and logistic aspects, things that are often forgotten. The fractionation of the biomass into, for instance, lipids, proteins or colorants, and then the formulation and the application of the whole biomass, referring to the short value chain, or of these fractions referring to the longer value chain. VITO is active in the middle part of this value chain, from the harvest till the, let's say, the lab scale application tests. And for the other parts, we collaborate with different partners. And collaboration is also what we do within the IDEA project. And IDEA, this stands for Implementation and Development of an Economic Viable Algae-Based Value Chain in Northwest Europe. So it's about applied research, taking into account scalability and economic aspects in a value chain perspective. And the value chain considered, is demonstrated here. And it comprises the parts that were explained before. Some are located at the algae farm, others at the processing industry, and then more downstream we have the formulating industry. And IDEA is about looking at and the different parts and connecting them together, because the value chain can only be operational and successful when all the elements are in place. For instance, at the algae farm, there is a pressure to provide larger amounts of algae. So this implies that there needs to be scaling up, where sustainability aspects become more important. And of course, there's always the search for the downstream market, who is going to buy the biomass. Then at the other end of the value chain, for the formulating industry, there a supply of sufficient stable quality of algae biomass is required at a competing price. The processing industry in the middle, this is still a sector in development, And actually, to link the algae biomass to the compounds that are required for the industry, it is required to know the specs of these compounds. And it turns out that to define these specs, that this is not such an easy task. And of course, we have to look at the economic viability of the whole value chain. So besides the main objective of indirect, which is the implementation of the value chain, we defined 4 sub-objectives that will be explained more in detail in the remaining part of the presentation. So first, there is the year-round algae production in Northwest Europe climate. Secondly, the processing of the algae into marketable compounds. Thirdly, it is to come to a concept of an algae value chain implementation plan. And this plan will enable to create longer-term impacts of the IDEA project, which is then the 4th objective. Before going more in detail, I would like to say something about the IDEA consortium. So within the project, VITO brought together 8 partners and 2 associated partners from 5 different countries. And we collaborated in this project from 2017 until the end of next year. So in Belgium, we have VITO, Thomas More en Innovatiesteunpunt. In the Netherlands, VITO Design Lab in University of Twente. Germany, Forschungscentrum Jülich. Then Central Superlink in France and THGASC in Ireland. So the first objective was to enable year-round algae production. So it's about the first part of the value chain. And here 3 aspects are considered to identify algae that are adapted to Northwest Europe climate with special attention for the winter. Then the demonstration at pilot scale of the year-round production of the algae biomass and some sustainability aspects. We decided to use existing infrastructure, and currently we have 2 growth plants operational. So in Germany at Forschungszentrum Jülich, we have green walls and VBACs. And then in Belgium, there's the Sunbuilt infrastructure with tubular bioreactors and harvesting and storage infrastructure that is co-owned and operated by VITO and Thomas More. For each of these growth places, year-round production of algae is being considered, and the algae species that are used for that are given here. So in Germany, the approach is maybe a bit out of the box, but it is to use a mixed culture that is changing composition in function of the seasons. It's a stable system, as Christina will explain later on. And then in Belgium, there we have the approach of an algae set that is alternated in function of the season. So Nanochloropsis in the more warmer seasons, Porphyridium in between, and Chloromonas in winter. In respect to sustainability, there reuse of the medium, and this is salts and nutrients, this is important, taking into account the pressure for upscaling, and also that at harvest time, the algae density in these reactors is a few grams per liter, and this implies that more than 99% of the culture actually is medium that needs to be removed during the harvest. And in the IDEA project, we use the VITO-MAF technology for that. So it's a technology that is able to combine actually pre-concentration with the reuse of medium, and more precisely, so an algae-free medium is generated that can immediately be reused for algae growth. And on the other hand, we have a pre-concentrated, so 10 to 20 times concentrated algae biomass that can be further concentrated with a centrifuge when needed. At VITO, we have these systems at different scales to screen algae species, but also at pilot scale for more continuous testings. And here you see a picture of a MAF system that is connected directly in Sunbuilt to the photobioreactor bioreactors for continuous harvest, where the MAF also acts as a turbidostat. And here it was proven that more than 90% of the water and the salts can be reused, and algae densities above the expectation of the 30 grams per liter were reached. It was even at some occasions more than 60 grams per liter. Within IDEA, the University of Twente is designing and building an infrastructure to capture CO2 from air, and then to dose this in the photobioreactors for algae growth. And the demonstration of the MAF system together with this CO2 capturing system is planned for the next month. The second objective was to process the algae biomass into marketable compounds. So it's more the second part of the value chain. And the first aspect that is considered here is the preservation, or more specifically the wet preservation of algae biomass after harvest, but before further processing. And here we look at the possibility, let's say, to store the wet biomass at the algae farm in cooled vessels, as you can see here on the picture, until they are collected, and it's a system similar like in the milk industry. And at lab scale, VITO evaluated the impact of different factors, and it was concluded that actually such a storage can happen at 8 degrees Celsius up to 1 week, which gives some flexibility related to the logistics. And here pilot tests using the system that is depicted here at Sunbuild, they are ongoing. Some examples of the fractionation of the algae biomass. So Nanochloropsis and Porphyridium are two strains we are focusing on here at VITO. And for Nanochloropsis, we decided to focus on lipid extraction towards valorization and cosmetics, and then the defatted biomass more towards the feed. And then for Porphyridium, there are different cascading biorefinery approaches to come to fractions enriched in sugars, proteins, oils, and the co-valorization of the others, and of course the colorant. And we do this from lab to pilot, and this to produce sufficient amounts of fractions that can be used for application tests. And within IDEA, the applications that are focused on are feed, food and cosmetics. And as you see, we have within our consortium experts in this field available. So for feed and food, products from the short value chain are used, and this refers to whole biomass, disrupted biomass, or disrupted and desalted biomass. On the other hand, also the products from the long value chain, so this is after purification and fractionation, they are being used, but this is more towards the higher end applications of feed, food, cosmetics, and for the feed also for a functional ingredient. So if there are industrial partners that would be interested to evaluate some of the fractions that are generated within the IDEA project, they can contact me in the framework of an open call. The third sub-objective was then the implementation plan of the whole algae value chain. So here the different parts of the value chain are considered and are linked. For instance, the logistic and the techno-economics along the whole value chain is considered. Also a platform or concepts of platform for linking the offer of the algae growers and the demand of the formulating industry to facilitate this. And the third aspect is then to prepare a roadmap towards the implementation of the algae value chain. This roadmap is being constructed and will be presented next year at our final event that will be organized at VITO. For now, we can say that one of the main aspects in the roadmap will be that in order to enable an algae value chain, clear applications are required. So applications that it's known this product is required with these specs, and this will facilitate the enrollment of the whole value chain. As stakeholders take-home messages, I would say that IDEA is a project that considers and links the different aspects of the algae value chain, so it's interdisciplinary. And to establish this, our conclusion now is clear marketable products are required. Collaborations will be necessary along the different actors in the value chain, and towards the economic feasibility, also high value compounds need to be targeted. And here the flagship markets that have been identified are aquaculture, cosmetics, and also pet food. And for this, I would like to thank you for your attention and to acknowledge Interreg and other local co-financing bodies, and of course the whole IDEA consortium.